Hey there viewers, in my last video I mentioned that I would try to keep you guys informed on what exactly was going on with both my computer and my channel. So because of that I have some good news and some bad news. The good news is that I ended up ordering a power supply which arrived the other day, and now that it's installed my computer is running fine. The bad news however is that while it is running fine for now, if and when I shut my computer down I have no clue if it will actually be able to start up again. And the reason for that is because it essentially has the exact same problem as it did before I even installed the power supply. And since I'm actually on this computer now, I can actually go into more detail about what the exact issue is without worrying too much about the file size being too large. Because recording this with the camera like the last video would have probably ended up with a 5GB file. Now, a lot of you have said that I have been incredibly unlucky as of late, but truth be told, in this case, it is actually kind of the opposite to some extent, because for those of you who remember, I actually began having real issues with this computer late last year when the hard drives kept failing, causing me to reformat the damn thing 3 times in the span of 2 months before I actually went out and got a replacement hard drive. But also around that time, I honestly can't remember if it was before or after, I also began having another issue with the computer, and yeah, I know, I'm actually saving up for a new one. I should be able to afford it by, hopefully, the end of the year. But the other issue was, for the most part, the same one that I'm having now, where if my computer is left off for any substantial amount of time, it would have trouble starting up again. Now, it was fine if it was just restarting or shut down for a few minutes, but if it was down for maybe an hour or longer, enough time to actually rest, then when attempting to boot it up, it would automatically shut itself back down, just like you saw in the previous video. The power supply would start up, the cooling unit, the video cards, monitor, fans, etc., but usually at about this screen right here, what I believe is the post screen, or usually right before it, is when it would shut itself back off. I'd press the power button again, and the same thing would happen once more. Attempt to boot, then crash. It'd rev up, then turn off. And this would go on for a bit, then after about, I don't know, 4 or 5 presses of the power button, it would actually start up. And once it loaded the operating system and made it to the desktop, it'd be completely fine. It would run for days or weeks at a time up until I decided to shut it down again, at which point the process would repeat itself all over again. Press the button, it starts up, and then crashes about the post screen. And this has been going on since about late last year, so honestly, I have been pressing my luck for it to have lasted this long as it is. But then about 2 weeks ago, I noticed that the power supply was giving off a bit of a humming or whistling type noise, maybe an electrical buzz, not entirely sure. And I figured I would shut it off for the night, hoping that by morning time, it would be fine again. Well, come morning, I attempted to start it up, and like usual, I pressed the power button multiple times while trying to get it to start, and every time, like usual, it would crash after a few seconds. The same song and dance I'd been dealing with for months. So I didn't really think that much of it. But then after about 30 minutes of trying to boot the damn thing up, I realized that I had probably pressed my luck too much, it had run out, and the power supply had probably finally died on me. Which is when I made that update video for you guys. And then I proceeded to hook up my old-ass computer from 2001, 2002, the thing that can barely do anything, and I began looking for a replacement power supply. And that's also when I found out that this Dell computer can't just use a universal part. And that's because, as you can see on this motherboard, it requires both a 24-pin and a 20-pin connector. And to make matters worse, the 20-pin isn't even standard. It uses this pinout. Using a universal power supply would have probably fried the motherboard, which meant I had no other choice but to get the proprietary part, a PM480. So I checked out Dell, and they were going to charge me $329 for a replacement, and not even a new one, considering that this is a 6-year-old part at least. It would have just been a refurbished one, so considering that's about 1/3 the price of a brand new computer, I was not willing to drop that much. Now eBay and a few other places had them a bit cheaper, but considering the phony Sony controller incident I had from a few months back, I wasn't willing to trust an individual seller with my money either. But after a bit of searching, I did end up finding a store that had them refurbished for about $80, so I ordered one from there. And after it arrived Wednesday, and I installed it, I noticed that I was essentially having the same issue as I was before. Press the power button, and after a few seconds, it would automatically shut itself back down again. at either the post screen or right before it. Then after about 10 presses of the power button, it finally managed to fully boot itself to desktop, and that's where we are now. And honestly, that's what makes me the most curious, because if it makes it past that one screen and it manages to load the operating system, it will run fine, same as before. It can sustain itself. It's that initial startup where the issue lies. Now, a couple people suggested a few things in that last video. APOC Tank said to remove the memory and try and start up the computer to see if I could hear any beeps from the motherboard. So I did that, and apparently that means that the motherboard isn't really an issue. Then Rollymaster said to try the paperclip test on the power supply to find out if the fan was even spinning. So I tried that, and indeed it was spinning. Then again, I wasn't really concerned that much about that, seeing as how I could actually see the fan spinning when it was inside the case. More or less, I was worried about it not outputting the right amount of power to everything. So either the issue wasn't the power supply like I and many others originally thought, or the refurbished one that I ended up getting has the exact same issue as my other power supply, which I guess is entirely possible, but would just suck. And I'd rather avoid having to pay someone to take a look at it, but it seems like that's what I might have to end up doing. And if they say that the power supply is the issue, then I should be able to return it to the store and get another one without much of a problem. And I just have to cross my fingers that the next one does not have the same issue. I mean, what are the chances of that happening a third time? But either way, since my computer is running now, I will be trying to record something for YouTube. Hopefully Darksiders 2. I mean, I've been waiting 2.5 years for this game. And not only that, I had other big plans for the month of October consisting of multiple different games, ending with Amnesia at the end of the month. So personally, I want to get something up to YouTube. I know you guys have been patiently waiting, and while my computer is running, I want to do something. And if I get any updates on this computer, I'll be sure to let you guys know, more than likely either on my Twitter or on my actual channel page itself. But I think that covers just about everything, so until next time, adios.